Parker, you're just kind of gatekeeping a little bit, buddy.
Oh, am I?
I'm
gatekeeping?
Cool. Like, we get it. Yeah, like,
oh, no.
I get it. You were an F1 fan before it was cool to be an F1 fan. I got it.
This is the Money Lap. Welcome. I'm Parker Kligerman, joined by Landon Cassill, as always. This is our podcast about all motorsports. And it was a big weekend of motorsports across the world, Landon. And we start with the PR lap. This is where we get to talk about ourselves, our podcast, and the lovely people out there that write us wonderful reviews about how much they love our podcast.
I like how we just fire right off talking about ourselves.
I know. Well, it is our own show, so we can just fully stroke our egos.
Let's do that.
Which is wonderful. Yes, so first and foremost, episode 5, last week's episode, biggest episode once again on every single metric. So we're growing like a weed. Basically 20 to 30% every episode. Tell your friends, tell your parents, send it to people you don't consider friends. That'd be great. More people listen, the better. We're up to 66 reviews on Apple Podcasts, which is pretty good. We're on our way to 100, trying to get to 100. Please help us out. You'll hear about the 100th. The word or the number 100 in this episode a couple times, considering it's the 100th year since the Le Mans 24 Hours started, but it's only the 91st running, so they get to do 100 twice. We want to get to 100 too. And we only have 5-star reviews, including this one from Spotify, from Potatoes, who said, great episode again, like the opinions on this week's events and certain ideas that came up. It's odd to enjoy on a Thursday, but I understand scheduling stuff comes up. Can they use Spotify reviews? So yes, Potatoes, we do, and we apologized last week due to travel and races being delayed. We had to put it out a little later than normal. But this one you're listening to will have come out Wednesday morning, which is great. And then we have an Apple review, once again 5 stars, and it says, Parker Kligerman and Landon Cassill bring their expertise. This podcast covers a wide range of topics, including NASCAR, F1, IndyCar, and more. Kligerman and Cassill bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. They're always entertaining and informative. They go on to list many other things, including things they like about the podcast, which is that we're knowledgeable, funny, and engaging, which I'm surprised they've been listening to this and got that sort of feedback. Yeah. But wonderful. Thank you, Brady. What do you do? What do you rate those reviews?
Thanks. They're pretty good. I think both of them. The first one, Potatoes, I didn't understand the whole Spotify thing. I appreciate the review and the question about Thursday. So, hold us accountable. Keep us right.
Yeah.
Also, the name Potatoes, that's pretty awesome. So, have I been rating on a 10 scale or a 5 scale?
5-star scale. We rate on a 5-star as well.
4.1 stars on that one. And then this other one is really great from Brady. Well written, long. I love it. It's in the high 4s, especially because it's from Brady. I think that's actually Tom Brady, the famous quarterback.
That makes sense.
So I'm gonna give Tom Brady a high review. Thank you, Brady, whoever you are.
Yeah, thank you, Tom Brady. We know he has a lot of time on his hands these days, so it's good that he's using that accordingly and correctly by listening to the Money Lap and writing reviews. That's wonderful of him. Hey, dude, I have to congratulate you, by the way.
Tom Brady probably gets his racing news from the Money Lap newsletter. He's probably subscribed to that, themoneylap.com, twice a week, 3 times a week, because Monday he gets his highlight videos, so he can catch up on everything that he watched or didn't watch over the weekend. And then Tuesday morning, Thursday morning, 7:30, get all your motorsports in 5 minutes less from the Money Lap.
It's also the best 5 minutes in motorsports, so it's just wonderful. Congratulations, by the way. You were part of a wonderful congratulations to Ryan Blaney for winning a marathon last week.
I got hoodwinked on that one. So I get a Cameo request, and I'm on Cameo, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's like this platform where you can pay celebrities, or I guess you could just say celebrities, but obviously they'll let almost anyone on there because I'm on there. But you can pay people to make a personalized video. So I get these Cameo requests, and I think that my price is like $30 or something. And I get this request from a Durrell. It's literally, the request is spelled like D-U-H or D-A-H, I can't remember, and then hyphen R-E-L-L. So I couldn't tell because sometimes people will spell their name phonetically so you say it right. So I didn't know, like I could tell that it was Daryl, but it didn't know if it was from Durrell. And then it was for Ryan, and it was spelled like R-A-Y-A-N, but then it was pronounced Ryan. And so they... And it was just this congratulate Ryan on winning his marathon this weekend, and from his friend Daryl or Dorell, but I didn't know which. Obviously just completely fleeced me into playing into the joke. But I did think something was up, because I'm like, you have these two weird names. Daryl, Darrell, and Ryan are not weird names, but it's just the way it was spelled. Both of them were weird. And then the whole winning a marathon. I've never gotten a cameo request about someone that's like won a marathon, and I've never even. I know actually a really good friend of mine is this really well known Masters men's marathon runner. So he's not a professional, but he's like an age group marathon runner. But he's like won the Boston Marathon, won these big marathons and stuff as an age grouper. So I can grasp the idea of winning a marathon, but like, I don't know. I just haven't gotten a cameo request from a marathon winner. So anyways, I did the cameo. And yeah, I said Daryl. I don't know. I just try to be real on those cameos. They're a lot of fun. And then it was literally like 2 hours after I sent the request, this tweet gets posted, and it was Bubba Wallace. Now I want to call him Daryl. It was Bubba Wallace playing this prank on really us and Ryan Blaney at the same time. I don't know, but it was genius. It was genius social media. You have to go on my Twitter. I think I retweeted it, or go on Bubba's Twitter and find it. It was from a week ago, but it was really good.
That was amazing.
It was congratulating Ryan Blaney on winning the Coke 600. How about that?
Yeah. Well, whoever came up with that, genius, whether it was Bubba or his social team, whatever. So funny. And yeah, you, Suarez, so many of you got just completely hoodwinked, which was amazing. And I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I'm also not on Cameo. I've resisted the 900 million times they've reached out to be on Cameo, because I don't even think I'd be worth $30. So I just said, if you want an engaging video, reach out to me.
Yeah. Let me, so I want to talk about that for just a second. Like,
No, you don't have time.
I enjoy it. I joined Cameo. They reached out to me. They went through this huge effort. I mean, this was several years ago, and I spoke to the people directly, and they kind of like twisted my arm to get me. It just felt weird. It feels weird to like set a price, charge my fans to make a video. But I'll be honest with you, there have been lots of fans that have been happy to pay. I don't really promote it, so I'm not, really shilling my Cameo, because I still feel a little weird about it. But I mean, there's fans that are happy to pay, and it's because you have a message they want to send to their friend or their kid, or happy birthday, and it's actually a lot of fun doing it. And sometimes when I really put some effort into it and put out a good message, they say thanks and they're really grateful, or they'll follow up on Twitter and be like, hey, I'm that person that you made a cameo for. So I've really enjoyed it. And
we did, we did use it
which is nice too.
Oh yeah, that's always the best. On the Money Lap, if you make money, that's great, because we absolutely don't podcasting. But I have used it because when Shannon, my girlfriend, goes over, she works on the Olympics for NBC. She goes overseas. She had like her 30th birthday while she was overseas, and so we made a video with these two people from her favorite show, and one of them like went above and beyond and made a whole birthday song, and it was very cool. So I have seen that. All right, here's the deal. If there's people out there that want me to join Cameo as well, when we hit 100 reviews on Apple Podcast, I will join Cameo. So that's my deal. That's my agreement.
You're gonna join Cameo, wow, that just didn't take much there. Welcome to Cameo, Parker.
I want 100 reviews on Apple Podcasts, and I'll join Cameo. How about that?
2 minutes ago, he's like, yeah, Landon, that's good for you and everything, but I'm still too good for Cameo. Now he's like, I don't know, a couple more reviews, I'm in.
I'm cheap. I'm cheap.
Wow.
Sign me up.
You know what?
Lastly,
speaking of a guy
hold on.
I know you want to talk about the race here. No, listen, stop for a second. I know you want to talk about the race this weekend, but now you literally just made me think of the PGA and Live deal from that got announced this morning, because it literally took you 1 second where you were like, you know what? No amount of money is worth me charging my fans for a custom video. If you want a video, then just send me a request for a video. You're like Jay Monahan from the PGA Tour. We've been following golf. I don't know. I know that this is a racing podcast, so PGA and golf have announced this merger today, right? Which is totally insane. The PGA Tour and Live Golf joining forces, creating this new entity. And I guess we don't know a whole lot about it yet, or really what it means for all of us. But it does. I guess it does mean we're going to see huge changes in golf, which I'm excited for as a fan. But what's interesting to me is it also means that Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, has done a complete 180 on his stance on Live Golf. Because remember last year he said Live Golf was a threat to the game, distraction to the players, violated rules. Right? He banned PGA Tour members that participated in Live Golf. He said that Live Golf is, not real golf. It's a gimmick. It's a fad. Well, now, obviously, fast forward today, totally different tune. In their announcement, he said it's an opportunity for the game, attraction to the fans, innovation, praise Live for creativity, diversity, engagement. It's the future of golf. We went from not being real golf to now it's the future of golf. So, I'm the Live Golf format to me. The branding of it and everything is one thing. The format to me, I was interested. I'm not sure I'm excited about like these guaranteed starting spots, right? Using racing terms. I always thought that PGA Tour is pure. Like these players have to play their way in every week, and I felt like it took away motivation when NASCAR had charter system, right? Where now the teams don't have to qualify their way in every week anymore. So I like to see that competition, and I wanted to see players that play their way in each week. I like to see that do or die attitude. What else I need? I need SpoilerDiecast.com. That's right. SpoilerDiecast.com is the best place to get your motorsports collectibles online. They have everything you need to satisfy your need for speed. Whether you're a fan of NASCAR, dirt sprint cars, IndyCar, or F1, they have the diecast and apparel you're looking for. And they have over 800 unique products in stock, ready to ship same or next day. Plus, they offer free shipping on orders over $20 and a pre-order system with a $0 down option for diecasts that are not yet available. How cool is that? And if you use our promo code MONEYLAP, you'll get an extra 5% off your order. That's right, 5% off on top of the free shipping. That's a deal you can't beat. So what are you waiting for, Parker? Go to SpoilerDiecast.com and get your motorsports collectibles today. SpoilerDiecast.com, the ultimate destination for racing fans.
You got me again. Love Spoiler Diecast. Go check them out. SpoilerDiecast.com. They're awesome. The PGA Tour Live deal is wild.
How was that transition?
It was incredible. It was good. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. How about that? 3 out of 5. You could have been a little smoother, but
yeah, it wasn't as good as the last few weeks.
I want you to keep working at it, though.
Okay.
So the thing with that, just to bring it back to racing a little bit, what's fascinating about them was obviously you had the Saudi Live deal comes in, huge amounts of money, offers all these players money. This is not dissimilar to what we saw in the open wheel world, in American open wheel specifically, back in the mid-'90s when you had a split between kart and what became the IRL. It's not
similar or not too dissimilar?
No, it is. It is similar. It is similar. It's not dissimilar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was very similar circumstances, except, that split went on for almost well over a decade, just a couple years over a decade, and it destroyed American open wheel racing in America. And, it has become a cautionary tale to the PGA, to NBA, to the NFL, to NASCAR. I don't think there's a professional sports executive that doesn't know the history of the kart IRL split, because it took kart, which at the time in the mid-'90s and early 90s was knocking on the door of overtaking Formula One globally, and turned it into an almost entirely niche racing series, right? When it finally merged back together, they were, almost unrecognizable what Champ Car was and what IRL was at the time. So, and it's been, a harder path for IndyCar to get back in the national consciousness ever since. And so, this people can say what they want about the idea of like they merged really quick and all this stuff and the about face. I think it's the best thing for golf. So you got to have just one entity pushing one rock up the hill. Whatever happens from here and how the guy, how much more money all the players make is going to be wild. And we can talk about, we could go on this for 45 minutes, Landon, I think, in terms of what the ramifications of this and how it would apply to racing and what we'd see in racing. But the thing to me is they avoided the disaster that could have occurred over the next 5-10 years if they let this go on forever.
Yep. Well, and I think that to me, this huge lesson learned by these players and the commissioner. I mean, look at how they look. After what the stance they were taking last year, and then completely flipping. To me, it's like a lesson in you just never know, and you should probably be truthful more often. like authenticity and honesty is way more
always
valuable
wins
in this world than some empty moral stance that obviously Jay Monahan was taking a year ago, trying to basically guilt his players into staying on PGA Tour that were being offered all this money. I'm not trying to make an endorsement for Live Golf by any means, but
no.
Obviously he took these extreme, I would say extreme position, but it's like he took this moral position in a less than a year, not only softened up his moral position, but merged the PGA Tour with Live Golf.
It's like me and Cameo, but except on a larger scale.
It's the same thing. It's really the same thing as you.
No, it is the same thing. It's
the same thing.
The
human rights violations and everything.
Yeah, oh gosh. But no, I do
what I'm
think
talking about at this point. What am I saying?
No, and we don't need to go down those paths of where all the some of the issues out there surrounding the politics surrounding the Live side. From a purely sports perspective, some things that did happen, the PGA Tour was forced to massively up their prize money for their players, which you look at the difference in 2 years ago or 3 years ago, what players are making the PGA to now, it's been ginormous, which was a great thing for all the players to get their rightful share of putting on the show that they put on for the PGA and from the rights money. And, they did some other things that are innovative in terms of the events and trying to make them more interesting and younger. And so we'll see what this entails. There's not even a name yet. It's TBD. So it's just so early, but we got to get back to racing. Speaking of which, you mentioned it. Obviously, was at racing at Portland this past weekend, where it was P1 in practice, had a gearbox issue in qualifying, ended up qualifying outside the top 10. Changed the gearbox, started the back, went all the way through the field, and found ourselves running second with 7 to go, and then a part of some late race restarts where I made a late race last restart move that didn't quite pan out. But before, I don't want to discuss that here. I want to do that later in the episode, Landon, and you and I will kind of break down my move and maybe even why I should and shouldn't have made the move I did. So stay tuned for that later in the episode. Let's jump into some big news topics. You mentioned the Money Lap newsletter. It comes out into your inbox each Monday with the highlights, Tuesdays and Thursdays as well, with the best 5 minutes of motorsports. And one of the coolest things in motorsports happening right now is the Isle of Man TT, which is one of the most insane races still to exist on this planet, where it's at the Isle of Man, which is a small island off of England that I've actually been to. I went to this event. It is a long course where they race super bikes through the street. They close off the streets, and it's public roads up until 10 a.m. each morning, and then they close the streets and they do these races. And they're time trial, basically, races. Well, there's a new record set, lap record this year. Michael Dunlop set a record at 135.531 average mile per hour on the lap. And these laps are like 20 minutes or 30 minutes long. It's nuts. They're doing well over 200 miles an hour. If you've seen any,
they're going 200.
Yes, they're going 200 in city streets with light poles beside them.
I can't watch these videos. They're seriously. I've watched them. I've enjoyed them, I guess, but like, it's not. It's one of those things that like I don't think I actually like seeing people do this. I love motorsports. I love speed. I'm not going to watch a whole lot of Isle of Man. I'm sorry.
Well, our producer Josh,
for me.
Yeah, our producer Josh
feels the same way right now that he agrees.
Yeah, well, he told me this the other day. He doesn't feel that way. So I went to it. I just want to say, Michael Dunlop ended up winning in the Superbike Superstocks, and he now has 24 wins, surpassing second place, which is John McGuinness. And he's now right behind Joey Dunlop, who's still in the lead with 26 wins. And Joey Dunlop is Michael Dunlop's uncle. So it's a family affair. I thought of the Dunlops basically as like the Earnhardts of the Isle of Man TT, maybe. But when I went over there,
to me, it's like, go ahead.
Well, when I went over there, it's a festival. And you suddenly have 80,000 motorcycle people that descend upon the small little island off of England, and it's a rite of passage. Now, is it wildly dangerous? Yes. When I was there, multiple people died. Just in I was there for like 3 days for the Steel Subaru, covering it with Jalopnik back in 2014. Multiple people died, and it was so eerie how it happened, because we were going around to different parts of the racetrack the race course, not track, course, because it's forever long, and Subaru was doing a run with this car in between the races. Anyway, you'd be watching these bikes come down and go through a corner ever, and then suddenly there would be no more bikes. And then you'd hear over the PA, all right, that's it for the racing today at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll resume activities tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thanks for coming. Talk to you later. Boom. Event's done for the day. No information. What happened? Someone just died, so they shut it down for the day. The police go up there. They basically make a police crime scene out of it, assess the incident, stop the racing, and then restart the next day. Is
this like the motorsports version of free soloing?
Yes, 100%. And that's a great example. And when you go in the pits, it's like it feels. The best way I can explain it feels like 1970s Formula One or Le Mans, right? Where it's real, like rough. There's the pits are sort of not assembled great. You have some of these factory teams there that are a little nicer than smaller privateer teams, and the riders are sitting there shirtless. They're wearing chains around their neck, and they have their like leathers down, and smoking cigarettes beside their bike. Yep, and it's like this. You suddenly feel like you're in the 1970s at Le Mans, and you're just like, these guys are total daredevils. They don't care. Like, this is just what they live for. And there's a lot of people have asked, is it too dangerous? All this stuff. I saw they've tried to make safety improvements. If you look this year, they had a lot of barriers up that they haven't had in the past in bad areas, and so I think there's some things. But at the end of the day, they're going well over 200 miles an hour on motorcycles in city streets, essentially. So it's always going to have an air of danger, which is wild. But I think I've always watched it as being a kid and seen it on Speed Channel, and more kudos to Michael Dunlop for setting, in this day and age in 2023, the fastest lap ever. So,
well, congrats, Michael. Congrats to. Or Joey, I guess. Congrats to
Michael.
Everybody that survives.
You had it right.
And I had it right. Michael's the one with the record.
Let's move into Formula One.
Michael's the one with the record.
Let's move into Formula One. Max Verstappen won again. Surprise.
What? The Mercedes are closing the gap, but they're still half second off. So
yeah. Here's the other part. Well, let me just quickly. You mentioned half a second. Is it really half a second? Because I get this sense that they're not even the Red Bull doesn't even have to push it. The Max Verstappen and the Red Bull team don't even have to push right now because they have such an inherent speed advantage in that car.
So, I mean, that's a good question. That's not a position that either of us have probably ever been in our racing careers on
never.
A systemic level, like maybe in a single race, you've had a car that's so good that you could cruise, but not over the course of a whole season. You've had a car so good that you could cruise just in and out of every race. And I'm not going to buy into this theory that they're not pushing it. I'm definitely not going to buy into a theory that Max is not pushing it. I think that whatever car Max is driving, he's driving to 100%. You have to. That's the only way to drive. Like that's the only way to race. You can't, especially cars like that with downforce, those tracks. Like it's so challenging. How do you? If Max is only racing at 90% and he's able to win these poles and win these races at 90% effort, then he's an even better driver than I thought he was. because
it is so hard to not be 100%.
It's so hard to not. It's so like professional race car driving is so freaking hard to do, and these tracks are so hard to drive, and these cars are so hard to drive, and these competitors and these restarts and these. I mean, they don't have restarts necessarily in Formula One like we do, but these standing starts and these, to go through a weekend and to tune in your balance of your car. If you're not trying your hardest, if you're not showing up and focused in each one of these sessions, there is no 90%. It's you're wrecking, or you're not driving the car right. You're getting dialed out. You know what I mean? Like the car wouldn't be fast. Does that make sense? I mean, we've seen this. Yep. Here's a good example in NASCAR. If good drivers make teams better, bad drivers make teams worse, right? A bad driver gets in, they give bad feedback. They don't drive the car to if you're not driving the car to its limit, then your feedback is going to be different. And you're saying that the car's tight when it's really loose, or you're saying the car's loose when it's really tight, and your team makes adjustments according to what you're saying, and they dial the car out. And then next thing you know, the car and the driver sucks, right?
Yep.
And so, anyways, my point is, you're not going to convince me that Max is just like at 90% effort. I don't know if you can convince me that Red Bull's at 90% effort. I mean, I don't know. Maybe in small examples, you could say, hey, they approach these weekends at 100% effort. The car is the best. They're bringing the best car they can bring every single week. He qualifies on the pole. He gets 10 laps into this race, and they go, we're a half second faster than the field. Maybe there's a little bit there that's dialed back. I mean, he's winning these races by 15 seconds, right? So you could tell me the second half of a race, Max is maybe being smart or being, taking less risk, but I don't know. I think that there could be some buffer there, and Mercedes looks to me like they're 0.3 to half a second off of the Red Bull.
Yep.
And it's amazing to see the improvement that Mercedes made. Yeah, we're seeing 25-second margin of victory. I mean, that's a half a second on a 60-lap race. It's amazing to see that kind of improvement and to see that kind of response in a car, to go from where they were running a couple weeks ago to literally, second and third, which has probably got Alonso and his group maybe nervous, even though I think Alonso recently just said that they have some big upgrades coming. So, I mean, these teams are constantly upgrading. To see that big of a jump is pretty impressive, and I think that just shows the capability that's in the Mercedes, and that maybe the capability that Lewis and George have as drivers, that there's potential there.
Yep.
So, but to find another half a second, that's a long ways to go, especially when it's not like Red Bull's not doing anything. I mean, Red Bull's going to have upgrades themselves.
The only thing that could be playing out eventually that we haven't seen is that they are going to, they're now going to be losing wind tunnel time as there's this whole, adjustment that happens as you gain success. and with the budget cap and the sort of the things they've put in, this sort of balance of performance ideas. Or stuff where basically if you're, leading by these points or have this large a lead, they start to take away wind tunnel time, and teams that are further back get more wind tunnel time so they can catch up. So we'll see. I mean, it's been, I think the most interesting thing has been seeing how much closer Mercedes can get if Aston can keep up a rate of development, that sort of thing. McLaren showed some speed in qualifying this past weekend. They didn't. They had a pretty abysmal start to the race that set them way back, so they didn't get the results probably they were hoping for with the speed they showed in qualifying, but that was interesting. So we'll see if these sort of budget and balanced performance restrictions in terms of being able to, rate of development actually have an effect. But right now, it does look like Max Verstappen and Red Bull could lock up this championship very early. So we'll see. Mm-hmm. With that, it not being a... Well, go ahead.
One tiny little point here, and this is just kind of maybe a baseless claim, but like I don't want to say baseless. This is an interesting thought. These are the best teams in the series that are going to get wind tunnel time cut, and by what percentage do they get it cut? Like 10%, 20%?
I have to look. I'd have to look it up. Maybe our producer Josh can look it up for us. It's a system.
My point
I can't remember exactly. Yep.
My point is, like, it's only that kind of stuff is like only going to make Red Bull more operationally efficient, right? When they get cut, when they get their wind tunnel time cut, then it's only going to make them focus on being more efficient in the wind tunnel, right? And if they lose 10% of their wind tunnel time, they can be 10% more efficient. They can gain that time back, right? In the time that they're working in the wind tunnel. Those smaller teams have less resources. I mean, they're not small teams by any means. They still have huge budgets, but like they're still going to face a lot of the same challenges. And getting these cuts. I mean, it is probably going to hold back Red Bull and whoever else is successful and gets these cuts, but they're just going to become more operationally efficient to be able to adapt to those changes when they gain and lose wind tunnel time. It's going to be hard to beat these guys for sure.
That is a great point that they are smartest too. They're in this position because they have very smart people who can maybe find 10% more ability and execution and efficiency, as you put it. So that'll be interesting. It's the one storyline to follow in Formula One right now, and maybe that begs the question: is the F1 US honeymoon over? Are we seeing the peak, as we like to say? And I need to, before I go any further on this and we dive into this, I need to say something real quick because I've gotten some feedback from some of our listeners that believe I don't like Formula One, even though Formula One was the thing I found first in racing. That? Yes, because I just find the enthusiasm at the moment a bit odd, considering I've been watching Formula One since 2000, maybe 1999 when I found it. I was around 9 years old. It's not the most compelling racing product. Like, you have to like other things. And so I just have always found this whole explosion around it very interesting because I've been like, if you looked at NASCAR in its boom time in the early 2000s, it was because it was a compelling on-track product that made you believe, even if it wasn't true, there was so much parity that on any given day, any car could go win a race, right? It was a very interesting product full of parity, and then it proved to not be the point or the case. Super teams rose up. Formula One has always been this way. And it's, for whatever reasons that it grew, wherever, I just found it interesting. So I want people to know I love Formula One. I will continue watching whether it's popular or not. I will continue to be excited about it. It was my first love. It's where I wanted to go in racing. And one day I hope to do something for one. I don't know what that'll be, but I'd love to go travel around and follow it around or something like that. So I am a huge F1 fan, but with that, I am realistic. And with this lack of compelling product this year, is the honeymoon coming to an end? Are we seeing the peak? We saw a decline in TV ratings once again. This past weekend, they were on ESPN versus ESPN2 compared to last year for the Spanish Grand Prix, and they lost almost 150,000 viewers.
Well, what we saw in F1 popularity and what we've been seeing, or what we saw up to this point, I guess, has been mania, right? I mean, this is like I equate this to what I've learned in the crypto markets, right? Crypto goes through mania cycles where it is just so it's always there, right? And it was in 2012, 13, 14, 15, crypto was growing, and then it goes through a mania cycle where everybody talks about it, and then it has to come off of that mania cycle, and it levels off somewhere above where it was before the mania cycle. And I think that's what we're finding with F1. So to take maybe a less cynical approach to, well, I mean, I don't know, just say F1 honeymoon is over. It's not even cynical. I think it just is real, right? Like the U.S. went through this F1 honeymoon. It went through mania. It had Netflix. It had $50,000 ticket race packages in Miami or whatever, and we're gonna see him in Vegas. Is gonna be huge, and yeah, it's gonna come down off of that mania. It's coming down off of that mania, but I do think that F1 in the U.S. is gonna level off more popular than it was before. It's definitely a net gain. And a lot of these fans that are into F1 and that we see on social media, they're not racing fans, but it's cool they were exposed to racing through F1, and maybe it'll branch out into other motorsports. So, Parker, you're just kind of gatekeeping a little bit, buddy.
Am I? I'm gatekeeping?
Cool. Like, we get it. Yeah, like,
oh, no.
I get it. You were an F1 fan before it was cool to be an F1 fan. I got it.
You know what's horrible about that is now on Twitter, I'm going to be called a gatekeeper and just be torn apart by the F1 content creator class that has risen up in the last year or two.
Also, because I know that you were kind of like an emo kid in high school, like I was.
Yes.
Did you also, not like it when people started liking the same bands that you liked? Or did you like?
No, I liked people.
Did you not like it?
I was a big.
Did you not like any of Fall Out Boy's new stuff? You like their old
stuff?
Oh
yeah, only old stuff for real hardcore Fall Out Boy fans.
New stuff. The stuff that's on the radio. Yeah, I don't like any of that. You should listen to.
I was a big Taking Back Sunday fan.
Do you have their mixtape?
I was a big Taking Back Sunday fan. Unfortunately, they never.
Stuff.
Well, they actually got really popular. They had a moment where they were really popular. I actually got to hang out with them a couple years ago, which was awesome. They were my ringtone. Number 5 with a bullet was my ringtone in high school. So definitely emo kid.
Oh my gosh, I still go back to Taking Back Sunday on Spotify every once in a while.
Oh yeah,
that's good.
Awesome.
Make damn sure.
Louder
Now.
It's just the best.
Great album.
It's the best. I love it. And they're awesome, and those songs are amazing. And it was really cool meeting them, hanging out, going to a live show. And I'd love to make it back. I made it to another one a couple years ago, and I'd love to go to another one again. They're so awesome. And their new stuff's good. I like it. They did that thing with Steve Aoki last year. That was cool. So, they're still going.
That's
just
right.
like us. Good. Yeah. Also, what's going right now, the F1 entry deadline has now passed for the sort of the prospective teams that want to join Formula One through this. I can't remember what they called the process, something evaluation process, whatever. Which means
speaking of gatekeeping,
speaking of gatekeeping, the Andretti Cadillac deal is obviously a part of that, and a couple other team entries, including a Formula Equal one. So we now await sort of the decision making. I'm going to say something on this podcast that I don't normally do right now, and if this gets clipped and put on the internet, we might be really, really famous for a little bit. So should I say it or no?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I have heard that the Andretti Cadillac deal is happening, and that it has been accepted. And the only question mark is how much money they're going to have to pay to join, and that the $200 million fee could be a lot larger, and we will see. So I'm not saying sources. I'm not going to tell you how I know this information. If it's legit, we'll see. This is a purely rumor. I don't usually deal in rumors, but I feel like this is such a cool thing. If it does happen, I'd love to see it happen. That I just feel like I'm almost willing it into existence.
Classic. That is classic social media era news breaking, where you're like, breaking news.
So
I've heard that Andretti is in. They've got it. They got the deal. It's just details are coming out. But because it's social media and I'm not a real journalist, I'm also going to walk the whole thing back and be like, I'm not a journalist. And I don't have sources. It doesn't matter. Who am I? I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't have to be accountable for it. Okay.
So true. Oh, man. We'll see what this ends up.
So, great job,
Anyway,
Parker. I guess we're breaking news here now. Or not news. Who knows? We don't know if it's news.
We're not news.
It's not,
it could be.
He just could have made it up completely and been like, I'm going to roll the dice on if I'm right on this or not. The one thing I think is interesting, the one thing that I do want you to explain to the listeners, because I didn't fully understand how this worked, and explain the $200 million buy-in fee. Like, what is that, and what does it mean? Where does it come from? How do they determine how much it is?
So the $200 million buy-in fee is basically a what's the word I'm looking for? Not dissolution, but what do you do when dilution fee? And so, of the 10 teams in Formula One right now, they get a certain amount of money from the sport each year from the TV rights and all the income the sport has, and it's built into their agreement with Liberty Media as to what amount they get, right? Well, if you add another team, which will be an 11th team, that team will also want a piece of that money, right? That's how these teams run. It's the prize money, whatever you want to call it. And so the teams, and when they did the latest agreement, the teams and Liberty Media came up with this $200 million buy-in because that would potentially satisfy the dilution they would experience if a new team joined. Now, this was before F1 exploded in popularity in the last 5 years because of Netflix, and therefore there's a lot of consternation amongst the teams saying, hey, that number is outdated because we've experienced so much growth. Handing us all $20 million is not even going to get close to what we need for the dilution that we're about to experience. So also the increase in revenue that they've experienced and that sort of thing. So now a lot of people are saying this needs to be $600 million. It needs to be $800 million. Some even, I think, have called for $1 billion, whatever it is, right? So, which is astronomical. That's why
so what you're saying is
fee exists.
It's like saying that all the F1 team owners get a share of this rhubarb pie. And they all get one slice of the rhubarb pie. And then Netflix makes a documentary on rhubarb pies. And so the price to share a piece of the rhubarb pie for a new person to come in and get a slice, because now if a new person comes in and gets a slice, everybody else gets a smaller slice. So now the price has to go up. Oh, I'm sorry. So Netflix makes a documentary on rhubarb pies, and now everybody wants a rhubarb pie. So now to let in a new person, they're like, well, it was $10 to get your piece of the rhubarb pie, but now it's $20 because Netflix made a documentary about rhubarb pies.
Can you do more of your metaphors around crypto? Because I think you were better at it than the rhubarb pie.
Was crypto better than? Okay, sorry.
I think you did better at crypto. Which on this day, by the way, speaking of crypto,
I have one more question on this though, and I guess I shouldn't have gone down this rhubarb pie. I was trying to be smart and cute, but so is it the teams that have to be like? Is there have to be consensus, or does Andretti or whoever this new team is coming in, do they negotiate individually with all these teams on what the fee is, or is it a consensus? Like, how's that? Do they have an association like the RTA and NASCAR, or how's that work?
Yeah, it's a consensus. And you had you remember Michael Andretti, a year ago in Miami, literally pounding the pavement with a piece of paper, begging F1 team bosses to sign an agreement saying we support his bid to be an F1 team. I think there was a quote by Christian Horner that was pretty amazing to describe sort of the temperature amongst the 10 F1 teams, which was having F1 teams vote to add an 11th team without changing the entry fee would be like turkeys voting for Christmas. And I think also Thanksgiving would work in that they have turkey at Thanksgiving or Christmas in England. You have turkey in Thanksgiving in America. Basically saying it's like, voting ourselves into a death situation, and we're not doing that. So I think it's going to be, the number is definitely up for discussion.
Well, it's not even just the tangible money is the TV money, right? Because if the TV money is worth $100 million a year, which I don't know what it's actually worth, to let Andretti in, they're going to take a slice of that, right? That's the whole point of the pie analogy.
Yep.
So yeah, it makes sense that it's like, okay, now you got to pay us something because you're taking a piece of our pie. But also in the back of their minds, Christian Horner or anybody else in the F1 paddock right now, they're thinking that this is an American team that's going to go up the ladder on American sponsors that we've been enjoying, right? We've been enjoying this new U.S. interest in our sport, and we've been taking these American companies and putting them on our car. And Andretti is a pretty big name and U.S. company, and they're going to no doubt be top of the list for U.S. sponsors wanting to get into F1. So there's some potential business there.
Gatekeeping.
It's kind of interesting.
Gatekeeping. That is the term of this episode. Gatekeeping. So, we'll see how it pans out. I would love to see it happen. I think Andretti is really cool to see them trying to become the global force in motorsports that they're becoming. And I respect Michael Andretti and that family and all that they've done and put together. And obviously Mario is amazing. And I just think if you're going to see a team go global from the U.S., why not the Andrettis, who are one of the most powerful names in all of racing? It's pretty cool.
Love it. So I know we had one more F1 money thing to talk about here, and I think this one to me will blow Marcus Smith, North Carolina's tax subsidy for North Wilkesboro out of the water.
Why don't you introduce it?
Did you see? Well, yeah, I was going to ask you if you saw the F1. So F1 is looking for $40 million from the county of Clark County, not the state of Nevada, but Clark County in Las Vegas. Which I don't know. What county is North Wilkesboro in North Carolina?
Oh, I don't know.
It's not Mecklenburg. I don't know. Iredell County, Hickory County. I don't know what county it is. Wilkesboro County might be. I don't think the Wilkesboro County has $40 million in the budget, let alone $18 million in the budget for that speedway to get renovated. But it looks like F1 is looking for. So they're expecting the cost to build the infrastructure to be $80 million, and they're asking Clark County for $40 million in public money towards that work.
You also, not to step away from racing, but you have the Oakland Athletics who want to move to Vegas and are asking for some hundreds of millions to build a $1 billion stadium in Las Vegas. And there was a study that came out I saw where they basically said, look, adding another team to a baseball team like the Oakland Athletics would bring basically zero value to the city because you need X amount of people to come just for that, and they won't because it's not popular enough, and therefore, the couple $100 million that the team is asking for them to spend would actually be used better in just helping in other projects. So kind of interesting is Vegas is obviously very popular, but these big events try to leverage public sector funds to make them make financial sense, right? And it's always a discussion: is it worth it or not? Right? Does the city see the return? Does the state, the county, whatever? Right? Do they see the return on that in visitors, in the visitors spending money within the county and the state and all sort of thing? And so this is always a discussion. But yeah, asking for $40 million out of an $80 million of costs that are tied to the infrastructure upgrades to get the place ready for the Grand Prix. So we'll see. That's gonna be interesting. NASCAR's gone through it with Chicago, right, and the repaving the roads there. So this is not abnormal.
So when you say infrastructure upgrade, so this is anything from roads that need repaved on the circuit, or
manhole covers being
public related. Yep.
Yeah, I think the things they have to adjust that are not their own, like they're building that building there, which is like $100 million, I think.
Right.
And that looks pretty cool. And it'll be sort of a HQ and an entertainment center and that sort of stuff. And then will be the garages as well. But they're going to have to do other things, and so they're just these this is always these big events, right? It's like it's so commonplace to see them asking for public funds. So let's move on to IndyCar because
I think they should give them the money. Do it. Just
all right.
do it. Raise the taxes.
Landon,
give them money.
Raise the tax. Yeah, there you go.
Print more
there
money.
You go. Why not? No. You just gotta charge the casinos more. That's all you gotta do. Yeah, they make enough money. Right. They build a whole city out of sand. So
that's right.
And they have all our money. So that's for sure. I saw this tweet by Russ Thompson, which I thought was interesting. He said another data point in the ongoing IndyCar versus F1 debate. Since the start of the 2022 season, there have been 5 F1 races where the winner led every lap of the race with no lead changes. To find 5 IndyCar races where there were no lead changes, you have to go back to 2004. Just saying. Kind of interesting. Speaking of which...
How far back do you have to go to find a NASCAR race with no lead changes?
Would it be Jeff Burton at New Hampshire, 2001, when he led every lap? Dominated? That's probably the last one.
That's pretty important.
It's got to be.
That's pretty impressive. That the fact that you were able to rattle that off was pretty good.
Well, thanks. Appreciate that. It was New Hampshire. They had restrictor plates, and unfortunate for the reasons why they had restrictor plates. But yeah, I believe he led every lap or almost every lap. So that has never. I can guarantee you, we will almost never see a NASCAR race ever again in the history of the entirety that NASCAR exists where there's not a lead change or someone who leads every single lap. That would be.
I think NASCAR race control would throw a caution with 5 laps to go and send the leader to the back. Just black flag the guy leading.
If that's the case, my newly made Cameo account at 100 ratings, I'll delete it if that ever happens to.
Okay.
Oh man,
look at you, just
more
you're
IndyCar.
Just selling you're just selling out both sides to Cameo.
Yeah, more IndyCar. It was a dominant win at Detroit with the new Detroit GP circuit, which was cool. Alex Palou won, sort of a dominant one, but there was a lot of passing. It was the track was really tricky. It was really slick, and fair amount of contact, and so just a really exciting. I thought it was a very interesting race. And I'll give the Detroit street circuit was, looked like a new street circuit to me, which they always sort of seem a little, maybe at times Mickey Mouse or whatever. There's areas where they're really tight or just overly bumpy, but I feel like that's just the flair of street course racing. And
to me, that's American open wheel racing.
Yeah,
on street circuits.
I love it. It's just
like,
it's always they start that way, but they get better.
That makes it special.
Yeah. I know.
I hate that F1 is so, particular about their tracks and, everything has to be perfect. And I know they have their legacy, venues like Monaco, but I watched some of the IndyCar race. First of all, I couldn't imagine running 100 laps around that circuit. That would be
beat up,
physically just destroyed. Second of all, going back to a few weeks ago when I had my, world famous tweet, the tweet that was heard around the world, and I had all these IndyCar fans just railing on me as if I was blasphemy IndyCar. They were saying like, "Oh, IndyCar drivers, they can't bump into each other like you NASCAR guys run into each other because they don't have fenders. They got to take care of their cars." Well, I'm sorry, but if you watch that race at Detroit, those guys, they didn't need fenders to run into each other. Those guys were absolutely firing it in on each other. It was super exciting to watch. There was plenty of contact. Those cars, I don't know. It just is fun, and it's fun watching them bounce around and stuff. And I guess I know Alex pretty much dominates the race, and we didn't get you don't see. On one hand, we think that there has to be this like dramatic race for the win and last lap passes to watch a good race, but like you said, there was still lots of passing and just tricky track and the bumps and sliding and narrow sections. I don't know. It was cool. I'm not saying I want to see a whole series worth of that, but I like it. Detroit.
Well,
Street
Will
Circuit,
Power had Will Power had a pass for the lead as well. That was pretty awesome. Even though he was on the alternate set of tires, but it was interesting. And if you like that kind of racing, check out Formula E.
I don't know if,
by the way,
was that a pass on Scott Dixon at the time?
No, it was Palou.
He had a pass on Dixon that I'm pretty sure he scared the bejesus out of Dixon. I can't
Really?
remember where it was. It was in
I don't
the
remember
highlight-
which
It was
one
in
that
the
is.
highlight video. Anyways, let's talk about Lamar.
That doesn't surprise me. Well, and also Will Power is a beast, so he always has been.
Yeah.
Le Mans 24 hours, as we promised at the beginning of the show. It may be the 91st running, but it is the 100th year since they first ran Le Mans 24 hours. They took a little break for a thing called a war, a world war. So this is the centenary edition, which means they can then do the centennial one when they actually hit 100 of them, maybe later on. So you get to do this twice and sell more T-shirts, which is great. Go Le Mans. Mm-hmm. In the hypercars, which some of you listeners maybe hear us talk about IMSA, where we talk about GTP. That's essentially hypercars. It's the platform for what used to be called LMP1 and that sort of thing. It's the top level prototype class. WEC calls it hypercar. We call it GTP and IMSA. You have Ferrari, Porsche, Peugeot, Cadillac, Toyota, Van Wall, Glickenhaus, all going, vying for victory over there at Le Mans 24 hours. And Ferrari in the test days was the fastest with their 499P, 3 minute 29 second lap at 0.504. And what was interesting is Penske, or the Porsche Penske Motorsports number 6 car, was only like 0.3 off. The Toyota was, what was it? 0.3 off as well.
I think the Porsche was closer net. The Porsche was like a 10.5 off.
Oh, a 10th. Yeah, 10th and a half. And then 0.3 the Toyota. So really close. Pretty cool to see. All the way back to I think 12th of all these cars was really close, which was cool. So that was awesome. I also saw this deal where they sort of split up the sectors. And I found this funny. So the Ferrari is obviously showing the most speed down the straightaway because they're the fastest down the Mulsanne sector, Mulsanne straight, which is essentially 2, chicane corners and long straightaways. Mm-hmm. But the Porsche was not fastest in the Porsche curves, which is the last sector. So disappointing for the Porsche. And then lastly, you've been on Twitter or any social media in the last couple of days. You may have seen the photo of the NASCAR Garage 56 entry from Hendrick Motorsports with Jimmy Johnson, Mike Rockefeller, and Jenson Button. And everyone wanted to know how fast it'd be, that sort of thing. But this photo showed how big it was compared to everything else out there. It looks like someone let an SUV on the track, which is awesome. They were really fast.
Remember that old BMW photo?
Yes, the M8, where it just gets bigger and bigger. I love that.
Is that? Wait a second. This photo that I'm looking at of Garage 56 is that actual? That's not. Oh my gosh!
No, that's the actual size. It's not a meme.
That car's
the
huge.
actual size. It's ginormous.
Oh my gosh! I just
love it.
Hope they can make it to 24 hours. I hope that car doesn't Baja over some prototype. Or hypercar, or whatever we're calling it.
Yes, and speed-wise, we have to point out something. Really fast. They're in the top 5 of the GT class. They wanted to line up exactly the GT. Mike Rockefeller at a 3:53.7, that's a damn fast lap in a GT car around Le Mans. Jenson Button at a 3:54.2, and then Jimmy Johnson at 3:55.8. He'll get faster as he learns the track. His first time at Le Mans. It also,
which by the way,
go ahead,
Jimmy within 2 seconds of Mike Rockefeller at Le Mans in the same car. That's pretty good.
He'll be good. Yeah, he'll be good. He'll figure.
I'm pretty proud of that.
He'll figure it out. Yeah, and you don't get a lot of running, but it's most of these endurance races, they have a lot of practice. But if you think about it, you got 3 drivers. You've got drivers that have to do nighttime practice. It actually doesn't equate to a ton of laps usually for drivers, and that circuit being 8 miles long, you don't get a lot of attempts at it. So he's doing the right thing, and he's within 2.5 seconds. I think he'll get far closer. They got
58 laps in though.
Yeah, well, that was a whole day, basically.
As the whole car did. I'm not saying each driver,
but Jimmy did have the fastest speed trap, of course, in the Garage 56 car, 305.6 kilometers an hour, which is roughly around 190 miles per hour down the Mulsanne straightaway. That's getting it. That's going. Love that. They also were they won the pit stop competition amongst the GT cars, and were the 5th fastest pit stop of any cars at the event. So that was pretty cool. I saw some videos of people just loving the NASCAR style pit stop. With a jack.
With the NASCAR style pit stop. With the jack on both sides. They had an extra carrier compared to the NASCAR rules, but that was so cool to see. A 10-second pit stop in Le Mans.
Yep.
On a NASCAR.
All on the line. Well, and the
no
thing
hydraulic
is,
jacks.
all the other, that's all the other cars have hydraulic jacks. So it was just awesome to see. But I can't wait. It's going to be fun to watch. I will be racing in Sonoma, but I'll do my best to kind of check in on the Le Mans 24-hour. So see what's going on. We should probably dive into NASCAR now. We promised it earlier. Of the 3 series racing this weekend, you had trucks at Gateway, which came down to a late race duel between Ty Majeski and Zane Smith, where Ty Majeski fired it in on the inside into turn 3, lost it, as you see often in trucks, didn't have the side force, took out Zane Smith, and Grant Enfinger went on to win. See that often in trucks. Good race, though, and Ty Majeski actually owned up to it and just said, hey, I went for it, didn't work.
You see that? So the way you said that, and I don't know if it's how you meant it or not, but the firing it in, wrecking, you see that often in trucks, and then you said, Grant Enfinger missing the wreck and winning, and you see that often in trucks. And I don't know if that's how you meant it, but I'm like, yeah, I agree. Those are facts. Like Grant Enfinger just being there and being like, oh, Grant won. I'm like, what?
How'd that happen?
You see that often in trucks.
Really Yep, that's actually great.
I didn't watch the race. I'm sorry. I didn't watch a truck race, but I did see a lot of apologies on Twitter afterwards. So I figured it was something like that.
Yeah. So the Xfinity series was at Portland, as I mentioned. I was in that race.
I watched that race. I watched.
Thank you. I saw you like to live text me during the race, even though I do not have my phone, which is one of my favorite moments after each race, to check my phone and see all the things you said about my race. But long story short, we put a lot of effort in this one. I went fast in practice. By 0.3 I led practice. Then went to qualifying, had a gearbox issue. Didn't really get to put together a lap. Actually was clutching on my fastest lap and still almost made the top 5, which was pretty cool. Got in the race. We drove to the field, got to the top 5, and found ourselves in second with 7 laps to go, trying to chase down Allgaier, who had a 3-second lead. Caution flies. We do a late race restart, me on the front row. I overcook it into 1 a little bit, lock the rears, try to end up sliding in 3rd. Then we got another caution. This time I restart 3rd on the inside. And my team, I should say, did an awesome job throughout this whole preparation for this event. We brought an awesome car. We were just super fast. And I felt like this last restart, I had to find a way to control this race because it was so hard to pass. If you look at that race, we found ourselves at times 4 or 5 cars in a train, basically. Like it felt like supercars where we were cooling our brakes on the straightaways because we were running so close together, we were so tight in speed. There wasn't a lot of tire fall off. And so it was just a really interesting race. And like when I came down before those cautions at the end with like 7 laps to go, I was going down the front stretch and it was like, you'll love this. It was one of those hot days. The track you can just see has gotten greasier. There's rubber laid in. We're on a long green flag run again. And you're like, this is classic stock car racing. Like I'm trying to, the brakes barely work. You're banging through the gears. The tires are falling away from you and you're trying to run down a guy for a win.
I love that about stock. Stock cars are awesome. It doesn't matter if it's Martinsville, Hickory, or Portland, or Sonoma where you're going this weekend. Like, just when those cars get greasy and grody and gross and just lean into each other, and it was good racing. I mean, you could throw a blanket over the top 6. The Xfinity series,
so close.
Series. You did so good. Where were you beating everybody? Because it just seemed like stage 1 your long run speed was incredible. Seemed like stage 2 it was okay, and then you guys must have made a really good adjustment going to stage 3 because your long run speed in stage 3 was great. I mean, you were
some of that.
You and Sheldon had the 2 best cars the majority of the race. I haven't seen the actual data, but it seemed like you and Sheldon had the 2 best cars the majority of the race. At the very end of the race, the 7 was the best car, but you were probably the second best car, my thought.
Yep. I think
where were you
a lot of it. Well, I didn't. There's no SMT, so I can't really tell you directly.
Right.
But I can tell you from my experience, 10, 11, 12 was probably one of my best spots, which was the last three corners of the track.
Yep.
And a lot of that was I found a unique way to use the first curb without getting in the grass and sort of setting myself up for the second right-hander, and allowed myself to have a lot flatter platform braking than I saw other guys. And so you saw a lot of guys lose the left rear there. I could just gain a lot of time down into there, and then it would set me up for the drive off of the corner, which we obviously had drive off with the soft setup we were running. Go ahead.
By first curb, you mean, are you talking about turn 8? So like after the backstretch straight away? Because you
After
asked
the
me
backstretch.
before you went to the race weekend.
Yeah.
You asked me
So
how
that
much
corner.
curb I need to use
Yes.
there. And I said
Yes.
use all the curb.
Yes.
And there's
Except-
grip on that curb.
There is, except what you had is a lot of people going so far they're in the dirt. And what it would do is you'd get dirt on your left side tires, and then you would slide when you got to the right-hander. So I actually found if you just cheated the curb a little bit more to the right and sort of dropped your left sides in between the curb and the concrete there and didn't go all the way to the grass, it was super smooth, and you could just keep the wheel straight, and it would fire you onto the right one and keep the platform better. So then I could just start braking with a better platform, and I was gaining a lot of time there. And then turns 6 and 7 on the backstretch, we were not one of the strongest. I think Cole Custer was, which I kind of know why. But yeah, I think that really was where we were gaining a lot of time. And I was getting very straight onto the front straightaway, which kept our rear tires on it. And then you have drive off, which helps over the long run. So
And why was Cole better? He had traction control?
he was able to go to first gear.
A shortcut?
No, well, yeah, basically. He was able to go to first gear, I noticed, on the broadcast. And I don't think many cars were able to do that. I think they ran a little taller first gear. And so he was...
Were you
weren't able to do
so
that
you were
yet.
staying in second for turn 7?
Yeah, the whole time. Yep. I tried first many times, but you couldn't make it work. So you just need a little bit taller gear.
I
And
don't
then
remember running first gear there last year.
yeah, it was interesting. I think it's definitely an in between corner, but it's a diff. It was if
Well,
if
it's
you don't
funny
have the
because
RPM,
turn
you overslow
7
it.
So turn 7 at Portland is this hairpin that leads onto the backstretch, and the most important. It's really the most important or the second most important corner on the track because it leads onto the backstretch, and there's a half a second either way to gain or lose on that corner and turn 12. Is it? There's the last corner that leads onto the front stretch. Like those are the two most important corners on the track. But what's interesting about turn 7 is, and I didn't ever feel like I got it right last year, which we also raced in the rain, but even in my preparations for it, I never quite could get turn 7 right. It's this hairpin, but it has this wideness to it and shape and also even banking to it that makes it drive like a momentum corner. So and also the way you set up off of turn 6, your car is always bending. So you're never straight going into turn 7, so it's not this really straightforward, threshold brake zone, peak decel type hairpin. So your car's always bending. You always have some angle to it. So it's all that turn 7 to me is all about angles and momentum, and there's really weird points of reference because the entrance is so wide to it. I felt like Sheldon, that's probably one of his strong suits there. And I think Sheldon is a really good driver when it comes to angles. I think that he has very good vision for the racetrack. I don't know if that comes from his, time in off-road trucks, like if he just has a very good, but I feel like he has, you talk about athletes having like court vision and stuff, like basketball players having court vision and view of the court. I think Sheldon has very good track vision and very good like situational awareness of his car on the track, and that's where his car control skills come from. So he's good with angles. I think that he is really good in turn 7 there, I would say, if we could see SMT data of him. But
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
He definitely
Anyways,
was one of the strongest
sorry.
there.
But that's
No,
so.
yeah,
Anyways, going back to the original point, that's why it's turn 7 is an in between corner of. It's not just a first gear hairpin corner where you're stopping the car. It can be a momentum corner. You can get away with, second gear, and rolling the car through the corner.
it invites you to have a wide arc and brake late, but then every time you do that, you overcook the center and you pay for it on the exit, and you pay for that all the way down the straightaway, so it doesn't pay off. You've got to underdrive the entry, get it to the apex, get it pointed, and get off the corner in the throttle. And, doing that, if you have the ability to be in first gear, that can help you do that. We didn't have that, so that's why I think the 00 was better there. Moving on to the final restart, I got a hell of a restart pushing the 7 of Allgaier. I pushed him all the way across the line, and the second we got across the line, my thought process was, because I was pushing him, I felt like if I could pop the right and he didn't block, this was the move to make to take control of the real estate down into turn 1. I felt like if I could at least battle him through there and be on the outside on the exit, which I had done to numerous other drivers on the exit of turn 2, this would allow me to control into turn 3 and then 4, and eventually take the lead, maybe even through 5 or 6. And so my thought was push him, pop out, at least just brake beside him into the corner, forcing him to not have the ability to turn in as well with me controlling that real estate, and then we'd fight it all the way out to the next couple corners. And also effectively overtaking Sheldon, because he would be all the way on the outside and wouldn't be able to, be near us because of the real estate being taken up. Mm-hmm. That's not exactly how it panned out. I ended up locking the rear tires. Got a tremendous amount of wheel hop, tried to get the thing slowed down, didn't. It looked a little bit overzealous. That was something I trouble with the restart before, so I had adjusted my brake bias to try and minimize that, and I had struggled that a little bit all day. And so in my mind, what happened eventually at the end there, I didn't go through the shortcut because I thought making the corner would actually be faster. It turned out not to be. The 7 and the 2 went through the shortcut. They end up rejoining 2nd and 3rd or so, 2nd and 4th. And we end up falling all the way back into clutches and getting rammed and finished 14th. For me, I wanted to win that race. I thought it was the move to do it cleanly. I thought it was the best opportunity because of the restart we got. If I was a car length back, if I was half a car length back coming to the start-finish line, I don't make that move, right? But the fact was I was pushing Justin, and therefore I was so close to him, it felt almost impossible not to at least try and control that open real estate because he couldn't get there with me pushing him. He couldn't make the block. I know a lot of fans were like, oh, there's overzealous, you're never going to make the corner. I still made the corner, actually. So you're wrong there. I know there's a lot of, Justin Allgaier and I have texted a bit. He was obviously not happy about it. But I said, and I say this again, to me, it was the cleanest way to try and win that race. If we go through there side by side, or if I come out second and we have to race it out, most likely it's going to involve contact to make a pass because of how that place was and his car maybe being a little better in the braking zone of turn 1. And I wanted to win that race. I felt like we had the fastest car. We set the fastest lap. We set 13 of the fastest laps in the race. The restarts and short run speed probably wasn't our strong suit, but you know what? If you're in that position, I feel like I had to take it. And I walked away from there thinking, man, I'm disappointed in the result, but I'm glad I went for it. Because I think there's nothing also more disappointing than being in position to win a race and feeling like there's more you could have done, right? Now, I don't want you to agree with me here. If I want your opinion on the move, and if you want to go down this, it'd be fun to discuss in that you take the opposite side of why I shouldn't have done it and what maybe would have been a better move than doing what I did.
I knew you're based on our prep for the show. I knew you were going to throw the question at me that way. You want me to take the opposite side here. And I'm not going to here. I want to go a different direction.
Okay.
Because I'm not just going to play devil's advocate for the sake of playing devil's advocate. I'll give you my opinion on the move after all this. I'm more interested in a therapy session here. So,
okay.
Let's go back to that moment, and let's say that you can't make that move, but you still got to win the race. Where else are we going to make a move? Like, tell me how you're going to win the race if you can't make that move into turn 1, if you have to stay behind him You're not peeking out. You're gonna brake with him into turn one. Now play out the rest. We're coming out of the chicane now, turn two. Or I think,
Yep.
Did they call that turn two out of the chicane? We're coming out of turn two now. Tell me what. Let's play this out now. But you have to win the race. How are you gonna?
If I've cleared Sheldon, most likely, so I'm in second place to the 7 of Allgaier.
Which you had a hell of a run. I know we're kind of
Yep.
walking over each other here, but you had a hell of a run, and it is fair to think like you could have pushed Justin into turn one, and I'm not saying pushed, but like you could have pushed Justin into turn one. You might have cleared Sheldon because I think
Yep.
you were basically next to Sheldon at that point, anyways.
Yep.
So we're in second in turn two. How are we going to win?
We're in second coming out of turn 2. My thought process was the only other opportunity I had was 10, 11, 12, and it was going to involve contact because no one made a pass in 10, 11, or 12 without contact throughout the entire day, which you saw the 2 and the 20. You saw, I believe, the 7 and maybe the 20 as well had contact down there. The 21 and another had contact down there. Because of the way that corner is, it's not really a hard braking situation.
You could ship him in turn 3.
You could ship him in turn 3, but I don't think I usually wasn't close enough to most cars to ship him there, or to do that. So it wasn't really on my that I didn't feel like that was a place I had the speed advantage. Where I had the speed advantage was 10, 11, 12, the last corner of the track, where it would have involved rolling through 10, 11. Hold on, rolling through there, getting into the back bumper, moving them out of the groove, right? Maybe not shipping them, but moving them out of the groove, and it would be a drag race down the line. That was my thought, because when I looked at the rest of that race...
Nobody means to ship anybody.
No, yeah, well, it probably would have went further, but who knows? But the point being, my thought process at the time was that was the 2 opportunities. I'm not going to beat him down to turn 1 on the the white flag lap because I wasn't out braking him at all any time before, and we just didn't have the braking performance to do that, which we've already gone to work on. Turns 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7 were almost impossible to ever pass unless you got beside them out of 2. So those were a non-passing zone. You're not going to beat them out of 7 and then beat them in the 10 because you're going to end up wrecking going through there side by side. The best opportunity would have been staying as close as you could, get the run out of 7, be as close through 10, 11, bumper to the back into 12, move them out of the groove, and that's how you make the pass. Which would involve more contact. I thought the way I did was cleaner.
Do you think coming to white you would have done that, or coming to the
No,
checkered?
I think you had to wait to the checkered because they could get back to you after that. You'd had to wait to the checkered. So it would have been a last lap, last corner, ditch effort.
I don't know about that. I think if you ship them, if you ship them the way everybody else got shipped, they're no. Well, I'm going to say ship them. First of all, I do want to be real about something. You say that you just want to rattle their cage, but I don't think in that scenario, going for your first win in that spot, you're not rattling any cages. I think whether it's the white or the checkered, you're just going to ship them out of pure adrenaline, right? That's just what happens. I'm sorry. I think 99% of the ships that you see in the Xfinity Series, Cup Series, Truck Series, whatever, aren't intended to be full-on shipping a guy. I think they're trying to move him out of the way, but it's just once you connect bumpers, you just push and you go, oh, that feels good, and you push a little harder.
Yeah. Hey, this is working. Hey, I love this.
I disagree with you on this strategy here. I think you ship them. Let's just say ship. Okay. Maybe because it's more fun to say. I think whatever you do, whether you're rattling their cage or you're shipping them, I think you're doing it coming to the white. And the reason is you got to take it when you can get it. I think you take it when you can get it. For this win, yeah. I think maybe, hey, 10 wins down the road, or you've already got 2 wins, you're in the playoffs, and we're back to this track, and maybe you can be a little bit more patient. But Parker, your first win, like for me, like you're taking, and that actually goes back to my opinion on why it's fruitless for me to just take some arbitrary stance against the move that you made, because it's like, you know what? No, you had a gap there. You have to fill that gap. And I'm not trying to give some romantic, Ayrton Senna quoted, race car driver gap thing. I'm just saying that, like, on restarts in Xfinity at road courses, you have to fill a gap. That's just like the rule. You have to. Yep. Otherwise, the gap will be filled on you. And so if you're backing up your entry to be like, oh, I'm going to save this for later, you're just putting yourself really at risk to whatever's going on behind you or whatever Sheldon has going on your left. And you know what? Maybe it would work out because you just painted a really good scenario, and we can create a really good argument for why it's like, you know what? Maybe a little patience. Maybe I try to maintain 6 inches off the 7 car, and I get position on the 2 car first, and then I can move the 7 down in turn 11 and 12. I think that's a good strategy, and in hindsight, maybe that would have worked. But for the position you were in and to have that restart that you had, I mean, you had an amazing timed restart on the 7, pushing him down the front stretch. It was the restart. It was an ungodly restart. I don't know. You got to fill that gap. I saw you. I'm trying to think turn 1. I saw you pass somebody into turn 1 that I was like, damn, that was pretty good. I don't know if it was the 10 or who it was, but there's somebody that you pass into turn 1 that I was like, okay, he's got something. He's got something in turn 1 here under braking. And so when you made that move on the 7, I was like, oh, I think he's got it. So anyways, my opinion of what happened, and I don't have to, well, I know you did, you thought that too. Like at the end of the day, I think it was the right move. I think you had to make the move. And I don't, in a way, I'm going to sound harsh here. I don't even care if you knock the 7 car off the track for that move and you won the race. You were just inches of execution away from making it and winning it yourself. And that's all that, like, to me, it was just like the execution just missed it just by inches, right? And I'm not talking inches like a clean pass. I'm talking inches where you still knock the 7 off the track, but maybe you make the corner.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, no, yeah, definitely. Still probably above contact.
Because for me, that's all I cared about. Sorry, Justin. I love you, buddy. He's won plenty of races. I cared that you make the corner and win the race. So
appreciate it.
That's what I wanted to see first. We were inches away from that. So you did the right thing. I'm not going to take some arbitrary approach against, but I'm glad that you were able to articulate to me the other option, right? And if you're in the same scenario at Sonoma this weekend, what does this look like? If you're restarting in, well, let's see, we have to choose. So let's say you're choosing 3rd for a green-white checkered at Sonoma this weekend.
Yep. You would probably take the most likely. We'd have to see how it plays out. But, I've had success there being on the inside into turn 1 multiple times. And I've had success being on the outside because it puts you on the inside of 3 and 4. So it's a multi-corner situation. There's a good chance you go
side by side all the way to turn 4.
Yeah, there really is. There's a chance you go side by side all the way to the 6, basically. I've seen that before. In the trucks last year, we did that many times. So I don't think there's a clear-cut winner up there, but I most likely, if I'm in 3rd, I take the inside, be on the bumper of the leader, race, squeeze as hard as I can through the left-hander through the front straightaway, set up myself to push them as far out as I can off of turn 1 and 2 there towards 3 and 4. And then set yourself up in a position to pass the leader either into turn 7 or to be as close to them as you possibly can into turn 10, right? In turn 11 and make the move there, right? Which is going to be similar to what you had seen in 12, but it's a multi. There you have it's a multi-corner thing. Now, if you can beat them in the 7, outbreak them there. Usually that means you can get away through the S's and through 10. That you have a large enough gap into 11, but you're putting yourself at major risk into 11 to be shipped. So you got to know who you're racing.
Yep.
Right.
One little point here on the choose. I think in that scenario for Sonoma, where the lane choice you're a little waffly on, if you're choosing 3rd, I think that it could be a smart default to choose behind the leader. Because at the end of the day,
100%.
Like if the lane choice is equal and you're like inside outside, I'm not sure which one I want. Choose behind the leader because he's the one that controls the restart, right?
And he goes first. Yep.
And he goes first. So at least then you get a half a car length on the next guy.
I agree with that 100%. Well said. No, it's exactly what you have to do. I find the choose at road courses a bit odd. I don't know why we have it. I haven't seen it have any real implications yet. I don't know. We just all kind of go to the same spot.
It's more efficient. It's more efficient. Why do we deal now? We don't have to deal with race control lining us up and telling us where to go. It's just like you get to the cone, you choose. I like it. It's better racing and it's more efficient.
I just think it's just an extra thing to have to, like, basically
It makes us more versatile.
deal with. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Agree to disagree. I'm disagreeing with you on this one. I don't know. I don't think it needs to be there. I just think it adds another thing we have to explain, and it's like why blah blah blah. It's just another weird variable.
More homework.
Doesn't really. Yeah. It's just not even that. It's just like road courses didn't need it. It wasn't an issue. It wasn't a problem. I've never lined up at a road course race and thought, if only I could be on the other lane there. It's been totally different. My whole life will be different. It's like, no, it's never happened. Never, ever. Like, if I'm in fourth place, I was running in fourth. That sucks. Sorry. If you're running third and you're in a better position because of that, great. Good job. Like, I think it's odd. So, that's just me. Should we move? Basically, the move happened. People were angry at me. I would do it 10 out of 10 times, and I'm sticking by it. And you know what? The cool part was we had a fast, damn, Big Machine Vodka Spike Coors Chevy, and we're going to bring that same one to Sonoma, and we're going to go take it to him. So we'll see. Thanks for the session, by the way, the therapy session. I appreciate it.
You did good. I can't wait to see you next week.
We'll see. Cup, Kyle Busch wins. After one of the weirdest, Gateway might be cursed, by the way. I don't know. They had red flags for lightning. They had red flags for brakes parts. With the internet went down, the broadcast went down. Everything weird happens at this racetrack, by the way.
When I raced there 15 years ago, the lights went out in the middle of the race. I was going down. I'll never forget where I was at. I was in that race. I'll never forget where I was at. I was I was going down the front stretch into turn 1. I was like right at the start finish line, and poof, lights went out. Dark. It was the craziest thing in the world.
That's insane.
So by the way, I love that racetrack. I mean, I missed racing there. It's just an awesome racetrack. I hope I get to race there again. But that place, it might be cursed. I don't know.
Kyle Busch won it. Some great late race restarts, but he didn't have much competition with Larson, who was on 2 tires and just didn't have the fast enough car, as we saw. Speaking of the Hendrick cars, our buddy Corley Joy fills in for Chase Elliott. We had the discussion last week about how he would do in the Napa number 9. Carson Hocevar drove the 7, and it looked like the 9, and maybe Hendrick as a whole was a bit of a struggle at Gateway. They just didn't have the speed. At one point, you had Kyle Larson running legitimately 30th place on speed and not able to go much faster in that race. So, I saw the 5-car use some pit strategy to get up to the front. The 24 was the best of them. The 48 finished just barely in the top 25, and Chloe Joy finished 21st. Carson Hocevar was running up in 17th, I guess, when he had a brake failure, which became a trend. What do we think? Wow. What's our assessment of our buddy Corey there and his big opportunity at Hendrick?
Well, I mean, in hindsight, our call last week was emotional and exciting for Corey, calling him in the top 10 or top 15, like we said. I think the real question we should have asked ourselves, and I think we in a group text, you and I had this discussion during the race, or maybe it was before the race. I think the real question we should have asked on this show was, where is he going to run relation to the teammates? Right? Yep. And I think you could realistically have said. Oh, we did? Okay.
Yeah, we said that.
But
we cared about the
I think it would have been fair to say, like, hey, if Kyle Larson is having a Kyle Larson winning day, is that a top 10 for Corey? Right? Mm-hmm. But if Kyle Larson, if the 88, or 48, I don't know whose number is what, the 5, the 48, the 24, like if those are top 15 or 15th place cars, which it seemed like they were, does that mean is Corey going to be able to run right with them, or is he going to run 5 spots, 10 spots behind them? I don't know. I was kind of bummed for Corey. I know the feeling. It's easy. Like on one hand, you're so excited to drive that car and you want to be able to hop in it and everything just happen. But also, you are getting in someone else's car. And it's rare, no matter how good especially with a really good driver, but it's rare to get in someone's car and just go as fast as they go in it. It's their car. It's their balance. It's their Their crew chief and engineers, the way they set the car up for Corey they didn't know how Corey needs a car set. I mean, I suppose Alan might have talked to Sparks or something. I don't know if he did. I don't know if Alan knows anything about how Corey likes a car, but I can guarantee you that Alan was more likely setting a car up for how he knows to set a car up for Chase or for what, generally works for them. Corey had a very short amount of time to adapt to that. And maybe that just shows you how different Chase and Corey, these are some of the things to consider. I'm just throwing this out there that now that I'm thinking about this and speaking it out loud, is like Josh Berry ran really well in that 9 car. Is that because Josh Berry is better than Corey? I don't know. I wouldn't say that about Corey. I think Corey has shown what he's capable of. This one race doesn't define Corey's abilities, right?
Yep.
I think it's more likely to tell you that Josh Berry's driving style is more similar to Chase Elliott, right? Like, hops in a car, Chase's car. Allen probably didn't make any changes, especially because he's a rookie, right? Like, and has no Cup experience. And Josh, maybe Josh drives the car similar to how Chase drives. And actually, I could kind of see that. I've studied both of their driving styles. Josh fires it into the corner. Like, Chase fires it into the corner. I could see that. I could see him having similar driving styles. So maybe Josh's balance, what he looks for in a balance, just worked. And maybe Corey's is different than Chase. And so, anyways, I'm going way deeper into something that's like, it just was, it was a bummer for Corey to see him, struggle like that. Or I'm glad he kind of was able to rally at the end and get some spots, but hopefully he gets another shot at it. It doesn't mark him. It doesn't write him off for me by any means.
No.
The only thing about Corey is he's vocal about resources and small teams and things like that. And this probably humbles him a little bit in terms of those conversations, whether it's public or private, being like, oh, small team this, or we've got to, need engine upgrades here, engineering upgrades there. This will probably quiet him down on those a little bit. But
I think so. And I think he also, well, I was thinking that he also shouldn't, I texted him this. I was like, hey man, don't get down. Like, a one-off, as you put it, does not define his ability. And, what he's doing in that 7 car is incredible. And I did see a quote from a Racer.com article about this where he said a couple things stuck out to me. One, that they basically created the setup around Ross's style. When they looked at everything, they thought he was similar to Ross. And if you look at it, Ross ran around 21st and he ran 22nd. So, he's like, hey, that kind of added up. And another part to me that stuck out is, what you just sort of said. He said, look, I think I learned in this, there's a value in relationships and continuity. And, you put it best. It's someone else's car. It's built around them. It's their touch points and everything. And the success he's having in the 7 car with Sparks and that Spire Motorsports team this year is because for 3 years or more, they've worked together to craft that feel and car and, execution and the processes that they put in place to run that well. You can't just jump in someone else's car and think you're going to have that same level of understanding. So I think there's a lot of lessons learned. I'm sure, you got a lot of keyboard warriors out there that will rip him apart for being vocal about small teams and meeting that big opportunity. But look, he's the guy that still had a Spire Motorsports car in the top 20 halfway through the regular season, which is we just openly know the budget is not as big as other teams that he's beating. And so that's an impressive thing to be doing. But it proves, why are they doing it? Because they have good people that he gels with and know him and he knows them, and it works.
Cool. Well, Austin gets another shot.
Yeah.
What's next?
We had Austin.
My back started to hurt. We've been sitting and talking for a long time.
We're just going to quickly run through this. We had Austin versus Austin. That's Austin Dillon, Austin Cindric. Came together after looking at it myself a couple times. I realized pretty obvious that the 3 sort of came up the track into the 2 a little bit. But more interesting was the immediate thought of, hey, I got right reared there needs to be a suspension. Maybe something we continue to see more often in the future here with the suspensions happening that we've seen. I don't know.
Are we entering the tattletale era of NASCAR teams, drivers, owners?
I personally,
Richard.
yeah.
Oh wait. I guess I'll do the talking on this one. It was minutes after the race. I think I tweeted because I saw a quote from Richard Childress that was like, that was purely intentional and da-da-da. And I just quote tweeted and was like, and so it begins. We're just going to tattletale now. And NASCAR opened this can of worms, I guess. I don't, we are not far from policing driver conduct. We are policing driver conduct, but we are on our way to driver regulations.
Ooh, scary.
Let's go.
We'll see. Let's see.
Bring it on. 10 years from now, it'll be unrecognizable. There'll be, that was an aggressive move, or they'll throw a caution just to send someone to the back.
The Formula 1 5-second penalties for the
5-second penalty
contact. Yeah. Breaking news, by the way.
I'm just imagining Mike Joy explaining to the viewer that a restart is under review for driver conduct.
Breaking news in stuff that would only be written in 2023, up there with AI and VR. Kyle Busch has his own vape, Kyle Kush. I just had to put that one out there. The winner of this weekend's Cup race, 3-time winner this year for RCR, has his own vape. Go and get yourself Kyle Kush. Love that. That's
I wonder if
funny.
Kyle Kush is any good.
Somebody tested out there. Well, actually, you know what? If you're over 18,
am I allowed to ask that question?
I don't know. I don't think we're probably on thin ice right now, regulatorily wise.
We should probably stop recording.
We should probably move on.
Anyway,
we're going to Sonoma
Kyle
next.
On your Kyle Kush.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're going to Sonoma next in NASCAR, and this weekend, as we discussed, is the 91st running, or also the sedentary running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Can't wait. Going to be fun. Xfinity in Sonoma. I'm ready to go. So, any words of wisdom before we cut this off?
No, I'm excited for Xfinity in Sonoma, and maybe by the 100th edition of Le Mans, you'll be able to figure out whether it's centenary or centennial or whatever, however to say it. So we got another 9 of them to figure it out.
And we'll be racing in it, probably, at that point. That's it. We're out here. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
Hey, before you go, please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also, click the bell icon below to be alerted to our latest videos. We also request that you let us know every single thing that we did wrong in this video or prior ones in the comment section below. We might just go through and answer them, or you'll make it to the next episode of the podcast or our next video. Also, subscribe on your favorite listening platform to be able to listen to this podcast on the go. And subscribe to our newsletter at themoneylap.com to get the best 5 minutes in motorsports delivered directly to your email inbox every Tuesday and Thursday. Thanks for watching. All right, so Le Mans 24 Hours is happening.
Oh, it is? Good.
Yeah.
Been waiting a year for it.
Did you not hear the whole discussion? So it's the 91st running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, but it's the centenary edition because it's 100 years since they ran. They took a short break for something called a World War.
So they're doing the same thing that Indy 500 did, where they're going to celebrate their 100th twice?
Yes. Of course. Sell more stuff.
Heck yeah.
That's always the goal.
They're going to do the 100th running. They're going to have all this 100th anniversary stuff, and everybody's going to spend all this money, and then 2 years later, they're going to be like, we're doing it again. Woo!